Good morning, boys and girls. Welcome to the Little Farmer's Farm with me, Guru MURPHINDA, aka Tony. And we're getting the last of our onions in today into this big long brassica bed that I've got behind me. So, what I've just done is I've just tilled the soil. This already had plenty of nitrogen in it when we were growing the brassicas, and I don't think the brassicas will have used up all of that nitrogen. But we are going to amend the soil a little bit, and we're going to put some bloodfish and bone in the mix. But what I have done already is I've tilled an area which is approximately 8 feet by 4 feet of soil. Tilled it with this. This is a tiller. Tiller the Hun, that. And then I brushed it with my stiff yard brush to get it all flat again. And what the tilling does, I'll just take all of my clothes off. No, I won't. I'll just take my jacket off. And what the tilling does is it aerates the soil. So it goes down for about 3 or 4 inches, turns the soil over effectively, called tilling. And yeah, it gets air into the soil. It breaks up the compacted soil, so that when I plant in my onions, which are the Senshu Japanese overwintering onions that we started earlier, coming up for just over 3 weeks now. Those have been off and running in the cells. They're ready now to be planted out. So when they go in, the root system will have more of an area to spread its wings. It's not going to be trying to bore down into really compacted, hard soil. So that's all that's done. So I'll just do that briefly and just show you what I was on about. Basically, all you do is work through the soil like that. Push into the soil. The tiller, with its spikes, spins around, breaks up the surface of the soil down to about 3 or 4 inches. So once you've worked that and you've loosened the soil up with that, you drop it down there onto your raspberries, like I just did. But you can then brush it flat, similar to raking, but you're using a stiff yard brush, and that just brushes it flat. It brings the worms to the surface as well, that. Which is not ideal really, but they'll find their way back underground, the worms. They'll sort themselves out, those worms, hopefully. So once I've done that, as I say, I'm going to get a couple of cupfuls of the bloodfish and bone meal, and I'm going to dust that over the top. So I'll just pause you for a second. Now, I couldn't find a cup. I've got cups, but they're for drinking out of, and the other one's for the comfrey feed up there. So what I've done is I've created a scoop, and that's an old plastic milk bottle that you can see there. And all I've done is basically cut a triangular diagonal or whatever across there, and it creates a scoop. So the scoop, obviously you've got to leave the lid on. The scoop goes in to your bloodfish and bone like that. And you can either scatter it directly, which I'm going to show you now. About a scoop per square metre onto the soil. Yeah. Just the surface with it. Now the rain will wash this in, but I am going to give it a bit of a further tilling to get it into the soil. You can visually see where you've missed a bit. So I'll carry on doing that and get the whole 8 feet done, and then I'll work it in with the tilled, with a tiller the Hun. Okay, so all done and dusted, as they say. with my little scoop. Let me show you its features. Dead easy. It's just a 1 pint bottle. The wise old elf and top tip Terry Maguire up there having a discussion about who's the prettiest. I've just been seeing the lads up there. Joel's just come back off his holidays actually. He's been away camping in the caravan. Well, that's it. That's all it is. You've got that little handle there for doing your scooping with. Right. So I'm going to work that in now with the tiller. Give it another going over. So all it is getting the nutrition mixed well into the soil so that wherever the root sends out its tendrils to discover the nutrition, it can find it. Like an even mix through the soil. But all soil is a growing medium, really. It's somewhere for the roots. When you look at those aquaponic setups, they have sort of the fish poo and wheat going through a bed of gravel, and the roots grow in the gravel, seeking the nutrition out from the liquid-based feed that they're getting from the wheat and the poo. And they're all different methods, really, of growing your crops. So I'm going to carry on with that and finish that off. People laugh at me for this, brushing the soil, but it gets it flat, flattens it all out, gets it all even. Because we're all about the aesthetics here of the Little Farmer's Farm, boys and girls, of course. It's got to be aesthetically pleasing to the eye. I hope you can hear me all right, should be able to. Because I am a loudmouth yet. Alright. Any bits of bric-a-brac or weeds that come to the surface, you can pluck those out. Give some big lumps of crumble. Take a couple of stones out, whatever. And there you go. A nice fine tilth. Okie dokie. Alright, now there's our bed, re-nutrified and relatively flat and straight. So the next step is to mark out where we're going to be putting in our rows of onions. Now I'm thinking I could probably get 8 onions in to that area. You want about 6 or 8 inches between them. But then the rows, you need about 10 to 12 inches between the rows. So you'll have the rows with the spacings of the onions about 6 inches, something like that between them, and then 6 to 8 inches. I think I'll go for the 8 inches actually. Give them plenty of space so that they can get aerated. We don't want to get moulds and white rot and stuff like that, so we'll give them the best chance. Because they're going to be buried under the ground, those, about a ½ inch below. Well, where the top of the onion bulb is, that'll be about a ½ inch or so below the level of where the ground goes, and then we're going to put a covering on top of that as well, a sort of a mulch on top of that as well, of about another ½ inch or so, just crumbled on top of it, and that'll be the compost and a vermiculite mix, probably like a 50-50 mix of that on top. So let's mark them out now. We'll put the holes in ready. Okay, so as you can see there, we've got the 6 little regimental soldiers down there, and then we're putting 10 inches, a good 10 inches between the rows. There's a spacing of 20 centimetres between each one of those, as I've marked out on there. And there's, as I say, there's 20 centimetres between each plant, each bulb. These go down to about 2½ inches, the holes. And all we do is we take our onion that we're going to select. So any one of these will do. Pull him out. As you can see on the back, there's a good root mass there, because we've started them off in the trays. Now, we need to loosen that ball up of root. So if we gently tease it and play with it a little bit, don't go too mad, but gently tease and play with it like that, so it's separating the roots out a little. We can then, with our hole that we've created, pop him in there, and then, you see that okay, can't you? Just gently firm him in, so that the snout is sticking up, but the bulb is buried, and it's under the ground. Now, we're going to build that up a little bit with about an inch of a mulch that we're going to be putting over that, but that's the step after I put all the onions in. So I'll put all the onions in, and then we'll get back to you. Okay. And there we are. 6 beautiful rows of 6. 6 is a 36, so there's 36 onions in there, all quite well spaced out, I've got to say. There's a good 10 inches between each bulb, and that gives us then enough space to get our hoe in there and hoe out any weeds that might appear. I do a lot of sort of pin pricking when I'm weeding, so as the weeds pop up I sort of pull them out as I see them, but it's good to have space to get the hoe in between there and chop the heads off as they pop up. I was going to put some compost over the top of them as a fleece, but I don't think I'll bother, to be honest. I've just been having a word with Joe next door, and he never does that. He said when it gets colder, if it does get very cold, he said then he'll sort something out, he'll put some cover fleece on top of them. But they're going to be underneath. When it gets cold in about a month's time and all the other onions are in there, and garlic, that's going to be dropping over. So we're going to put the cover over the top of that to help sort of break the wind, act as a windbreak for the icy chills, and that should keep some of the more severe weather away from them, but also let the water come through, let the rain come through. So that is about it. Here we go. Look at the devastation in there. That's slugs for you, that, boys and girls. Ruined them. Spring cabbage at the back and the Robert De Niro kale at the front, and the slugs are hammering it. That's the only one that's any good, that plant there. I'm going to take them all out of the beyond rescuing them. The devil's invertebrate, the slug. Okay, I think that'll do. Now we have got more onions left there, but as well we've got other beds to sort of fill up. So I've got about another 20 onions there. The reason I've left, there's 2/3 of that bed left. We're covering there about 6 feet, but it's an 18-foot bed, that. So we're going to be planting the red onions in there when they mature, and they get their shoots in a couple of weeks' time. The red onions are going to go in there. And also the garlic's going to go in at the end. Some people say don't mix garlic and onions, but we've never had any issues with doing that. So horses for courses, horses for courses. You can do what you want with an allotment garden. It's all trial and error. But obviously, if you learn from mistakes and learn from the advice that you get when you're growing, then it assists you to be a better grower, doesn't it? Or a less foolish grower. So I'm sat back inside the tiki tunnel now. There's all our stuff going on nicely down below. Cabbage, boracale, winterbow, that one, and purple sprouting broccoli. We'll all be getting potted up this week for overwintering in here. You can see the winter collies. They're growing quite nicely behind us. The keen-eyed amongst you will see that there are slug pellets in those beds. It's indoors, no birds or vermin get in here. We've had issues with the slugs. I pulled 6 slugs out the other day that were starting to chomp away at the cauliflower, and I haven't got the Nama slug at the moment, so please forgive me, please bear with me with that. We're going to have to, I put the slug pellets on last night, and already it's killed 3 or 4 big fat slugs that were getting onto that cauliflower. We try and be as organic as we possibly can, but until we can get the nanoslug situation sorted out, the quickest and best way of getting rid of those slugs is just to put some slug pellets down. There's nothing going to be getting here mammal-wise that's going to be affected by that. The slugs die within minutes of ingesting it. They don't get outside here. They can't be eaten by the birds, hedgehogs, things like that. So we're going to be fine. No pets coming here either. I don't like using slug pellets, but there comes a time at the moment in our growing journey that we do need to use them, and they are very effective. We've tried coffee grounds in there. We've tried the eggshells in there. None of them are doing the job. The slugs are too persistent. I found 5 slugs on the Virginian tobacco plant this morning, so I've just hand-picked them off and tossed them out. But yeah, slugs are the devil's invertebrate slugs, and they'll just devour everything, like they did with our Chinese cabbage, like they're doing with the cauliflowers that are outside at the moment. Because I haven't used the slug pellets. I mean, I've tried beer traps and all sorts, and they are relatively effective, but there's nothing as effective as the slug pellets. Nothing as effective as that. We want to try and get away from the slug pellets and use the nanoslug, which is a parasite. But at the moment, we can't afford to buy it. It's quite expensive, and we're coming out of the breeding season for the slugs now. So come next spring, probably about February time, I will be dousing all the beds with the nanoslug, and that's a more organic control for the slugs. It kills them off within 3 or 4 days. The nanoslugs, according to farm, but you've got to keep repeatedly putting it on the ground. Every 6 weeks you've got to reapply it, but eventually it should get the slug population down to a really manageable level, so that it's not going to be affecting our plants as much as it did last year. Those Chinese cabbages were destroyed by the slugs, and I'm not having that again, because I love Chinese cabbage. Okay, so that's just a caveat. We won't be using slug pellets hopefully next year, but just please bear with us with that one. All right. Right, have a good one. I'll catch you later. Wednesday evening. We're halfway through the week now. So take care of yourselves and each other. Keep growing with your head down, as you can see up there. And remember, we love you all, unless you're a slug. And then we hate you. Right. Catch you later, boys and girls. Bye-bye now.